they were collected to bring hope to those exiles that were in Babylon, that they would know how they could live faithful lives even when they were living in a very broken world, when their world was shattered. And so today, as I was looking at Psalm 34, this is what I really believe God gave me for this passage. And what we're going to see in Psalm 34 is how to live a life that pleases God in a broken world. How does our life please God in the midst of all the brokenness? And so I want to give you a little bit of background of this psalm. David wrote this psalm while he was fleeing from Saul. Right? Saul wanted his life. He's taken off. He's running for his life. And he finds himself in Gath. Now, we would come down and say, well, okay, he was in Gath, so what? Well, Gath was the hometown of Goliath. Kind of a problem. Like, if you killed their giant and you show up in their hometown, anyway, that's where he was. Achish, who is also known as Abimelech, was the king, and he did something interesting. He actually welcomed him in, probably against some counsel from his people, but he welcomed him in. But when the people recognized who David was, that he was the one that killed their champion, David knew it was time to leave, but he was kind of stuck. And so here was David's plan. I'm going to act like a madman. I'm going to start drooling, and I'm going to start scraping, and I'm going to that was his plan. Seems kind of ridiculous, doesn't it? But he got to this place where he felt like the only way that he could get out was to act like this. And so with spit running down his beard and clawing the gates, Achish thought, man, I don't want another crazy guy in my city. So what's he do? He lets him go. It worked. It worked. And I started thinking about that. God, how did that work? And then it was like God said, well, how is it that some of your dumb situations and ideas work? And I'm like, I have no idea. And they reminded me, this is when you're quiet and you disconnect from all social media, you can hear God pretty clearly. And he said, it worked because of my grace and because I'm bigger than your situation. I thought, oh. So, here's what we see. In this difficult time of David's life, he was being pursued by his enemy. He was shunned by his countrymen. He was threatened by the Philistines. And he was able to pen Psalm 34, showing us how we can live a life that pleases God in the midst of a broken world. And that's what we're going to examine today. And so in verses 1 through 3, we're going to see this. We're going to see a life that pleases God chooses to bless the Lord daily. And the psalm starts by saying, a psalm of David when he pretended madness before Abimelech, who drove him away and he departed. Have you ever sometimes I read these things and I think, man, poor David, that's going to follow him for all of eternity. Like, we're going to get to have him be like, David, you remember when you were acting like a madman? Why'd you do that? I mean, I'm just so glad God doesn't record all my dumb things down like that. But David, in light of all that, says this. He says, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make its boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear of it and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. So not only is this a picture of what David did, but it's also an invitation for you and I to say, hey, if we want to live a life that blesses God like David did, we're invited to do that, and he's going to show us how. And so the first question I had was, when did David choose to bless the Lord? It was not just in good and easy times. We're told here at all times. He says, I will bless the Lord at all times. And it's true. Sometimes it's easier to bless the Lord than other times. Other times it is definitely more difficult to bless the Lord, especially if we don't really understand what's going on around us and wondering why God is allowing or doing the things that seem to be happening. But this is when David wrote this. He wasn't the king on the throne with all the money and sitting in the palace when life was easy. His life was difficult. The king of Israel was pursuing him. The entire city of Gath was suspicious of him. David was in a place of despair, causing him to act like a madman. You know what's interesting is despair has a way of making us act in ways that are totally out of our character, because it's kind of our sense of self-preservation. What can I do? And I tell you that because I grew up for 40 years of my life, and this was my goal, that I was going to dictate whether you accepted me or not by what I did or didn't do. And I did that because I felt this sense of brokenness, because I always felt like my parents never wanted me. And as a result of that despair, I was going to control the narrative. And if I could make you reject me on my terms, I was okay with that. And that's kind of where I see David at. But, man, sometimes we do things so out of our character when we're trying to preserve ourselves. And again, that's where I was. And I can look back and I could see those things that I did in hindsight and be like, oh, that's why I did those. And then almost feel a sense of guilt and shame because of that. And I realized that some of those things I did, they didn't really make any sense whatsoever. But yet I still did them. And then I had to live with that. And that's where David was. With his attempt to preserve his life behind him, probably looking at, man, that was really foolish what I did. He pens this. He writes this. He saw how God was with him, letting him try to do it on his own. Giving him the freedom. But yet he saw that God was with him the whole time, which led David to writing about how a life that pleases God begins with a life dedicated to blessing God. And what I mean by that is David lived a life where all the blessings were going to go upward. That God getting his glory was the most important thing. And he lived his life that way. Did he do it perfectly? No. We know he made mistakes. And we all do. But yet God, in those moments of his failure, showed up in a very real way. Phil Wickham dropped a new album. I have a beef with Phil, okay? Phil almost ran Isaac over when Isaac was 2 in the parking lot of the Calvary Chapel Bible College. So I've never been able to get over that issue with Phil. Phil was like 16 at the time, driving really fast in the Bible College parking lot. But I'm still a little salty. I'm just confessing my sins. But there's a song in this new album, and I would encourage you guys all to listen to it because it brings hope. And the song is titled, Running to the Runaway. You see, when we're running away from God, God is running after the runaway. And we need to understand that. And I just encourage you to listen to that because it brings hope. But here David is. He saw that God was letting him try to do things on his own. He saw that God was with him. He dedicated his life to bless God. So what does that mean? We're really good at the church to tell you we got to bless God, but then be like, okay, now you figure it out on your own. And then we wonder why there's so much chaos. But what does it mean to bless God? So I thought, well, let's look up what the word bless means. I thought, let's just start there. So in the text here, the word bless here means this. It means to kneel. It means to kneel. It comes with this idea of surrendering our lives to the Lord. So if we are going to bless God, we need to surrender our lives to God. But when we say surrender, what are we talking about? You see, if we want to truly bless God, it means that we need to surrender our praise, our pride, and then we need to make it our goal. And I'm going to use our vision and mission statement of our church. We need to make it our goal that everything that we do with the intent to make Jesus famous. And so we bow down and we surrender our praise and our pride, and we make it our heart's desire to make Jesus famous. And in looking back, David understood that a life that blesses God is a life that is surrendered to God. And if you look at the verbs that were used, you talk about blessing and boasting and magnifying and exalting the name of the Lord. The name of the Lord shows up 16 times in this psalm, meaning it's about the Lord. Our life needs to be about the Lord being glorified. And so David gave thanks to the Lord by magnifying him and exalting him. And how did God respond? He answered his prayer. He provided for his needs. He delivered him from trouble, and he protected him from danger. That's what God did for David. But you know what David didn't do? David didn't boast in his own cleverness or his own skills. He didn't say, God, you know what? I'm glad you did this because I kind of earned that because look at what I did. No. He blessed God because of what God did and who God is. He boasted about the Lord, who he is and what he does. You see, a life that surrenders its praise and its pride and chooses to live to add to Jesus' fame is a life full of choices. And we have to choose to begin each day by saying, God, I am determined to live my life to bless you today. If we're going to bless God in our hardships, we need to make that choice in the morning. We need to make that choice today, but we also need to make it every day because a life that blesses God chooses every day to bless the Lord. Or a life that pleases God is a life that blesses God and chooses to bless God every day. The second thing that we're going to see in verses 4 through 8 is a life that pleases God chooses to seek the Lord in everything. He says, I sought the Lord and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears. They looked to him and were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed. This poor man cried out, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around all those who fear him and delivers them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who trusts in him. We live in a time where we are so rushed in every area of our life. Have you noticed that? We are moving so fast, and we got to get here, and we got to get there to do things that we really don't even want to do. How many of you wake up every morning like, great, today let's go to work. And you rush to get there, only to wish you could get out of there. But we rush, we're in such a hurry. In every area of our life. You know what? And I hate to say it, even spiritually speaking. And I hate to say it, but we're really good at encouraging us to rush even our spiritual life. I remember growing up as a kid, there was this record label, 5-minute walk. And they're like, just give Jesus 5 minutes. And I remember my youth pastor told me this. What you should do is put your Bible on the toilet so that when you're going to the bathroom, you can have your devotions then. I thought that was a genius idea in high school. For some of you, that means your devotions are going to be long. For others, not so long. But I thought to myself later on, how did we get there? To say, God, that you're only as good as the time I could spend with you in the bathroom? And my heart sunk. Could it be that our priorities are wrong? We wouldn't say it, but we live in a way that does. We say this, well, I just don't have time to seek the Lord. First thing. And seeking the Lord becomes when it's convenient. And here's how I would respond to that. You don't have time not to seek the Lord first. I mean, think about it. We always have time to redo something, but how much better is it to do it right the first time? I mean, that's what we try to teach our kids from the time they're really little. Like, do it right the first time. But again, let's clarify, what does it mean to seek the Lord? We're told here, David sought the Lord. The word sought means to seek with care. And in David's case, it was referring to seeking him in times of trouble, right? Seeking with care. What does that mean? That means this. That means we slow down, consider our situations in light of our circumstances, and we make our request to the Lord and ask him to give us the direction he wants us to go for that day. Sometimes it's even that moment. I want to give you guys permission to slow down. I really do. Not that you need my permission, but I want to encourage you to. Think about it. If the world is moving at such a high rate of speed, there must be a reason for that. Because we have an adversary, and I'm not a devil behind every bush type of guy. I think we give the devil way too much credit for our stupidity. But I look at the world and I see how fast we're moving, and I can't help but think that that's not a design from our adversary. Slow down. Paul put it this way in Philippians 4, 6, and 7. He says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything. What does that word everything mean? It means everything. Everything. By prayer and supplications with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard our hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Could it be that we don't have peace because we are not in everything making our requests known to the Lord so that the Lord will fulfill that second part of the verse? We don't have peace because there's certain things that we're holding on to. David tells that the Lord heard and delivered him from his fear. David was afraid. You know what? There's a lot of fear in our world. There's a lot of fear. But who is the they in verse 5? Right? Verse 4 talks about David, but it says, they looked to him and were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed. Who is the they? That would be those who were feeling shame, the poor, and those who were in trouble. They show us that if we seek the Lord, he hears, he sees, and he surrounds us with his presence. And Jesus is what? One of his names is the Prince of Peace. So if we're lacking peace, I would say the first thing we need to do is step back and say, where is the presence of the Prince of Peace in our life? And then invite him back. You see, God will provide us what we need when we need it. And then what does David say? He says something so fascinating. He says this, he says, taste and see that the Lord is good. For a large guy, that's a great verse. We love to eat. We love to taste. Man, guys, if you missed out on an amazing men's breakfast, if you weren't here yesterday, you could have tasted and seen that the Lord was good. There was a lot to taste, man. It was a smorgasbord, right? Now, mind you, okay, if you ever come to one of our men's events, you can guarantee you're not leaving hungry. If you leave hungry, that's on you, right? I'm Portuguese. My biggest fear in life is that there's not going to be enough food. My grandmother, who just passed away at 96, she didn't talk to me for 3 years because I didn't have food at my wedding. That's how important food is to a Portuguese. But just as important as food is to a Portuguese, what's more important to God is that we live a life that people could taste and see that the Lord is good. What is good about God? In the context here, it's his faithfulness. You see, a life dedicated to blessing and seeking the Lord in the midst of a broken world will offer an appropriate sized meal for people to taste and see the goodness of God. Let that sink in for a minute. You see, David sought the Lord and was saved from his fears and his troubles and everything around him. And so now we have a choice. And we need to understand that the life that chooses to seek the Lord in everything enjoys not just the blessings of drawing near to God, but the actual presence of God himself. We've become so accustomed to enjoy the results and the blessings that God gives us that I think we overlook the most important thing, and that is that God is with us in the midst of brokenness. And that's the difference between what a follower of Christ and Christians have to offer to the world and anything else. You see, we offer hope in hopeless situations that the God that we love and we serve is present with us. The next thing that we're going to see in verses 9 through 16 is that a life that pleases God chooses to stand in awe of the Lord. Verse 9, "Oh, fear the Lord, you his servants. There is no want to those who fear him. The young lion lacks and suffers hunger, but those who seek the Lord shall not lack anything or any good thing. Come, you children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Who is the man who desires life and loves many days that he may see good? Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace, pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth." So David says, oh, fear the Lord. The word fear means this. It means to be in awe of. It doesn't mean to be afraid of, though we could be and should be afraid of God. I mean, He's got the final authority, right? But more importantly, we need to be in awe of God. And what does a life of awe look like? Again, if we don't define the terms, then we don't really understand what's happening. And here's what I believe it means. It means it's this. It starts by seeking the Lord. God, I'm so in awe of you. I recognize that you're so much bigger than my situation. I need to seek you. I want to seek you. But then it means that we we surrender our desires. We surrender those things that we think we need to survive. Our desires. Like, you know what desires really reveal? They reveal our idols. And here's what I mean. When we don't get the things that we feel we desire, we get really angry because those tend to be the things that we worship. So we surrender our desires. But notice what he says here. Not only that, but we keep our tongues from evil and our lips from deceit. What does that mean? That means that what we speak matters. This is the reason I stepped back and said, Lord, I'm not going to say anything till I hear from you. Because we have a tendency when we react to situations to not speak in a way that brings life and hope. But we need to understand that what we say matters. But then he says what? Depart from evil. When we're seeking the Lord, sometimes the Lord's going to show things to us in our lives that are evil that we need to flee from. Flee. On one of my water bottles, I got a sticker that says flee. And what does that mean? That means we should all wear track shoes at all times. So when God shows us the things that are dangerous to us, we take off running. We don't wait. Do you know who the only person in the Bible we're told to remember is? Lot's wife. Remember Lot's wife. Why? Well, when sin was in front of her, she took off running, but then she turned around. When God says flee, flee, run. You're like, but I don't like running. Walk briskly. Get on a dude. There's motorized scooters out there. Get one of those. You don't even have to exert any energy other than this. Maybe a little balance, but if he says flee, if he shows things in your life, flee. There's a reason he wants you to flee from them, because they are harmful. But he doesn't stop there. He says, and do good. Do good. You see, it's one thing to flee, but if you don't flee to do good, you're just fleeing. The whole intent is that we live a life that blesses God, that does good to those around us. And sometimes that might mean even the people we disagree with. I loved Ron's comment yesterday at our men's breakfast. He goes, man, I blew it. I should have stopped. I passed a homeless guy on the way to the thing, and I knew we were going to have enough food. I should have stopped and said, get in, I'm taking you to breakfast. You have no reason not to come, something like that. But what I loved about that statement was, you see, as we're fleeing the things that we should be fleeing, we look for the opportunities to do good. That doesn't mean we're going to always do those good things, but if we change our mindset to be looking for the opportunities that God brings us to do good, you will never know how much that will impact the people in your life and the people that God brings you. You will never know. I shouldn't say never. Sometimes God gives you the glimpses of what your sacrifices and the good that you did for people. But he doesn't always. And when he does, man, it's just so mind-blowing. You see, fearing God is a life that seeks peace. That's what we're told here. Again, what is peace? Peace is Jesus. He's the Prince of Peace. It's a life that seeks Jesus. It means that we need to seek with the intention to find. That's what seeking peace here means. We seek with the intention to find. You see, we need to be specific what we're looking for. I think one of our problems is we're too broad in what we're hoping for, that we really don't focus in on what we need to be seeking. So let's be specific. Let's seek and with the intention to find. And could it be that we are spending too much time trying to seek an outcome rather than the one who can, will, and has the ability to impact the outcome? Right? We need to seek Jesus, not just the outcome. Let's seek Jesus. Seeking is good, but we also need to pursue peace. And the word pursue here means to follow closely, to attain. In football, there's a play called the option, where the quarterback has an option. He can either hand the ball off to the dive back, he could keep it himself, or he could run, and he's got a guy in pitch, for a pitch. And the quarterback has all the power. Do I give it? Do I keep it? Do I pitch it? And that's what I see here. When it means to follow closely to obtain, it's to say, okay, I'm the dive guy, so I got to be close enough to the quarterback because it might be my turn to get the ball. If I'm the quarterback, I need to have my eyes up so I can see, so I know if it's my time to keep it. And if I'm the other running back that's in that pitch, area, I need to make sure I'm ready to receive that pitch because that pitch could come at any time. It's putting ourselves in the position to be successful, to be close enough to God to get what he's giving us when we need to get it. You see, to fear the Lord is a decision. It's a decision to live a life of faith that makes Jesus the object of our pursuit, which will lead to our peace. A peace that says, Jesus, I trust you even in the brokenness of this world and with the things I am uncertain of, but even more with the things that I am certain of. And I say that because it seems to be that the things that we're the most certain of, that we tend to hide behind those to find security and a false peace. So are we willing to trust the Lord with what we think we're certain of? A peace that trusts Jesus. Because those are the things that are really going to strengthen us. So standing in awe of the Lord speaks what is true, pursues what is right, meaning it abandons sin, does good, gives God the opportunity to strengthen us in all opportunities. It means we become peacemakers and not troublemakers, while expecting the Lord's presence in the brokenness all around us. So now David closes this in verses 17 through 22, and we see a life that pleases God chooses to trust the Lord with every area of their life. Verse 17, the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to those who are broken heart, or with a broken heart, and saves such as have a contrite spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. He guards all his bones, not one of them is broken. Evil shall slay the wicked, and those who hate the righteous shall be condemned. The Lord redeems the soul of his servants, and none of those who trust in him shall be condemned. You see, it's when I got to this place that I knew God understood where we would be when everything took place this week. And it's in this context that I would like to address the whole Charlie Kirk situation. And I want to try to do it with as much grace as possible, to offer as much most hope as possible. And so I just want to share with you where I was when I heard the news. I was sitting at my desk studying. And for whatever reason, I opened up my phone because I was at this place for a break, so I wanted to check something, and I saw a thing come through about Charlie Kirk being shot. And I got sick. I thought that should never happen to anybody. And my heart just sank. I was shocked. My heart broke. Then I heard the news that he passed away, and my heart broke even more for his family, for the shooter's family, and all those who had to witness that tragic event. There were so many, my heart just broke for all of them. And I tried to make sense of it. God, why did it happen? And then I thought, oh, shoot, I'm going to have to make a response to something like this. Terrified me. What am I going to say? How do I respond? When I stand before you, how do I encourage you? What do we do? How do we, as followers of Christ, how should we take this tragedy that took place and move forward in this broken world? And as I was watching, more and more of social media, I thought the first thing I have to do is I have to turn this off. I have to turn it off, and I did. And yesterday, I got away to where there was no internet. And I sat with the Lord for hours. And I was like, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to stand. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. God, I need you. And here's what I felt like the Lord gave me for us. Again, in the context of who we are, we're a church that believes the Word of God can transform the lives of people. And that's why we put a very big emphasis on studying the Word. We believe that God in His providence will speak to us and give us all that we need in times of tragedy, to bring us hope and comfort, but to also show us how we should live in light of the brokenness that's all around us. And if you listen to anything on social media, you would have seen that there was all kinds of brokenness that took place. And then it just added to me the grief and the pain and the sorrow. I mean, I'm a dad. And I'm thinking to myself, these two kids are going to grow up without their dad. And then I start thinking, the shooter's dad. My heart broke. And then I started thinking about all those kids that were there witnessing and all those people that were there. And just the weight of the world just kept coming upon me and upon me and upon me. And I'm like, Lord, what do I say? What do I do? How do we move forward? And in that place of being still and waiting, here's what God showed me. Number one, our focus needs to be the gospel. Because the gospel is still good news. The gospel still has the power to change lives and is still our hope. We need the gospel every day. We need the reality of the blood of Jesus Christ to forgive us, to empower us, to give us what we need to keep going. I think we also need to recognize that people grieve differently. I've done a lot of counseling with people that are grieving, and I step back and I listen to them, and some of them are angry, some of them are confused, some of them are questioning. And we give people the space to grieve differently on any other circumstance, but we need to do the same in light of these tragedies that took place. People are going to grieve the situation of Charlie Kirk differently, depending on who you are. But we need to give people the space to grieve differently. We need to let them. But how do we do that? Well, we grieve with a broken heart. Isn't that what Paul said? We weep with those who weep. You should have a heavy heart over the tragedy that took place. But you should not lose hope. We still have hope. You should grieve. You should weep with those who weep. You should wrestle with those who are wrestling with how to move forward. But you know what we also need to do? We need to trust, like we're told here, that it's the Lord who draws near to the brokenhearted. The Lord is going to draw near to the brokenhearted. And that some of you are brokenhearted over what took place. And you should. God is going to draw near to you. Why? Because he loves you. He cares about you. Just as he's going to draw near to Charlie's family and every other family member that's had something tragic happen, just like he did to the families. I mean, right after the Charlie Kirk, we remembered 9/11. What a horrific day. And what do we remember about all of that? It was tough. We were at a crossroads. Our nation was up in shambles. But God was still faithful. God was still drawing near to the brokenhearted. We need to trust judgment into the hands of the Lord. Isn't that what it says here? And we need to trust that his judgments are just and true. But we also need to trust that the Lord is still redeeming and restoring people that confess their sins. And we live in a broken world. And we were faced with a huge tragedy. And that was just the tip of the iceberg of the depths of where people are. And we have the gospel. We have the message that could speak hope and life into their situations. So as I look at this passage, I realize that the times I most wonder where the Lord are the times where my heart is broken and heavy the most. And that's exactly where David was. And then I started thinking, where is the Lord in those times? And what does David remind us here? That in the darkest moments of humanity, Jesus is closest in those times. And I think of Mary when she went to the tomb on Easter Sunday, having lost all hope. She's just wanting to finish preparing Jesus' body, and he wasn't there. And she left. And she's actually having a conversation with Jesus. But she thought he was the gardener. And what it shows me is that so oftentimes when our eyes are filled with tears and our heart is heavy with grief, that we don't see Jesus as right there next to us. But he is. He's been there the whole time. And this is where faith comes in, because faith enables us to say, Lord, your word says you are near, even if I don't see you. On the basis of your word, Jesus, I believe that you are near me even now, even if I can't feel it. And I want to live in a way that exemplifies and gives the world around me the adequate sample that they could taste and see that the Lord is good. And that you're with me. You see, when we cry out, our promise is this, that the Lord hears us and delivers us. Verse 18 says that the Lord is near the brokenhearted. And what I get from this is nowhere in this psalm does David even suggest that a life of faith and obedience will exempt the child of God from trouble. We're going to go through hardships, but God is with us in those. But he does promise us this, that if we trust him and call on him, he will see you through your troubles. He gives us the assurance that God is near us when our hearts are broken and our spirits are crushed, whether we feel it or not. Guys, this is a promise not with conditions. It's fact. God draws near to the brokenhearted. The wicked are condemned, but the Lord redeems the souls of his servants. That's what we're told. And the interesting thing here is when you look at the last part of that psalm, you know who it fits perfectly? Jesus. In his darkest moments. You see, many are the afflictions of the righteous and the wicked. But we must never forget that God redeems both. And I remember when I was the wicked that was spoken of. And I remember what it was like to have my sins forgiven. And I remember what it was like to have somebody come alongside me and love me when I didn't even feel lovable. Because that's when God made the biggest difference in my life. And so I want to leave you guys with this. The life that chooses to bless the Lord trusts every area of their life to the Lord while living out the gospel in our lost and dying world, looking for people to love while seeking and standing in awe and blessing Jesus. Jesus who understands what it's like to live in a broken world. Guys, that's the hope that we have. And I just want you to know I love you guys so deeply. And I know that a lot of you are grieving and it breaks my heart. And I just want you to know that God wants to draw close to you today, to lift your head and let you know that he is with you because he loves you.